podcast was marketing plan, templates and tips. I've probably got the most boring topic around it because no one wants to think about planning. But you know, it's really important. I'm going to start with my last slide first. Okay. Now, I'm guessing this is really familiar to a lot of you. Here we have something that we've got a whole pile of things we're going to do. We've got a whole pile of dates we're going to do them on. And we've assigned a person and a budget. So I imagine none of that. In fact, I imagine some of you will actually have that in your businesses right now. Or if you don't, it wouldn't be a hard thing to do. It'd be pretty easy. And most of us would probably say, when I go into your business, that's our marketing plan. No. That's the last part of a marketing plan. And I'll give you an example why it's the last part of a marketing plan. I had some investors come and see me a couple of weeks ago. They had a great product. It was a household cleaning product. Fabulous product. Looked great. Really did. It was a range. I thought, well, we've got a credible range here. There was quite a few range. You know, there's about 20 products in the range. Looked really good. Their issue was, Rosina, we've done a lot of this. We've advertised on radio, we've actually advertised in our local magazine and in the New Zealand Herald, and we've been to some expos. Nothing's working. Tell me what else I should be doing. 2 questions I said to them. Do you know who your customer is? Well, we kind of think it may be mums with babies. Sometimes we think it's retirees, and other times we think it's with people with big boats. I'm like, oh, okay. That sounds quite wide. And the second question I said was, do you have a plan? So the answers to both of those were, they didn't know about their customer at all, and they didn't have a plan. So I said, I can't tell you whether having a phone-in to 1ZB is a good idea. I've got no idea. I can't tell you whether having a digital campaign through Facebook is a good idea because you haven't done the thinking. So if there's nothing else you go out of it today, you need a plan and you need to think, and the last thing you need to do is to do that. Because when you do that, you'll know whether it's the right thing to do. You know, gut is good, but that's 10%. Knowledge is 90%. So, one of the things I get asked is, well, why the heck do we need to bother with this plan? You know, marketing, like a lot of other functions, is really vital to your business. Here's a key. Customers can't buy from you if they don't know about your product or service. End of. Doesn't matter how good your product or service is. If they don't know about it, they actually can't buy it from you. And the thing about why you're needing a plan is that it wastes lots of time, money, and all your goddamn effort marketing to people that are not likely to buy from you, no matter how good your product is. If I can tell you every time I've heard people, but our product's really good. Yeah, but you've got to find the right people that actually think that and want to use it. So, good thinking, marketing plan can avoid all that. We can avoid making sure that we have the right money with the right effort giving us the right plan. So let's do some thinking, and then you can actually do your action plan. So one of the things that's really important is the 3 C's. So 3 C's. So this is around the whole kind of marketing. We're going to talk about this today. First of all, our customers. So clearly, those investors had no idea who their target ideal customer was. It was so wide, it reached from 0 to 70. No one can have a budget that spans that. We're going to talk about competitors. You need to know them more than you know yourself. And we're going to talk about channels. So some of those things might be foreign words to you, especially channels. We'll go through those. But those are our 3 C's. And we've got to get those right in the marketing plan before we can ever do an action plan. So a smart marketing plan will help you target the right people with the right message at the right time using the right channel. So a key component, this is kind of going to be what we're going to talk about here. Oh, that's a bit quick, isn't it? Your business plan and resources. What is it that you want your marketing plan to achieve, and how much time and effort do you want to invest in it? Your target market, which is your ideal customer. Who are they and what do you know about them? If you don't know very much, you're in danger. Your competitors, what are their strengths and weaknesses? What are they better at you doing? What are you better at them to do? Competitive advantage, what makes you stand out from the competitors? Michael will talk about this in brand as well. Marketing channels, how and when is it best to reach your target market? A smart marketing plan can actually, when you actually add all those together, they're going to get you to focus on the best opportunities, not just things that we think might work. Okay, so first steps. I think we need to define what it is you want to achieve. So one of the things that's pretty important is that we've got to have a tie-in with our business objectives. So define what it is that you want to achieve. Your marketing plan must align to the bigger picture. Okay, so here's an example. If your goal is to grow your customer database by 10% within the next 12 months, your plan will focus on finding new customers. Conversely, if your goal is to sell more to your current customers more often, your plan's going to focus on that. So it really needs to kind of be hitched to the bigger picture. What is it? What are the bigger goals that you want? Consider the resource you plan to invest in marketing. So this just isn't the budget. Think about who's going to manage your marketing and how much time you want to allocate. Trish is going to talk about this a lot more in detail, so I don't want to go there. But it's really important that we kind of start thinking about how the heck are we going to, how much money are we going to have to be able to invest in this, and how the heck are we going to manage it. Now, just to give you a point here, see this here, here's the templates. So this is the stuff that we're going to send to you, okay? So you're going to get this whole presentation, but here is about filling in the gaps. So here's about, remember your marketing objectives must be aligned, so you just fill these in. That's kind of how you're going to work through it. So we get the thinking right to get to the bigger plan. So that's what we're going to send you along with the video. So we talked a lot about defining our ideal customer. So, if I look at this, how many of us not even hitting the dartboard, let alone the actual bullseye? So, really will your business be relevant for everyone? If I get this thing, just everyone. Well, ultimately, not everyone finds you attractive. It's kind of a little bit like dating. Me and my friends, we all wanted to marry Brad Pitt, but unfortunately he didn't find us that attractive. We actually even didn't find us. It's really important that, it's never a good idea to take a broad scattergun approach, because it's not cost effective of our time and it's incredibly costly. I think in New Zealand, we think because we're small, we want everyone. Let me remove that misnomer from your head. In fact, because we're small, we need to be more niche in what we do. Unless, for example, you're something like McDonald's or you're something like the Warehouse where you've got sufficient scale. I don't kind of think there's anyone quite like that here. We really have to think about who it is that we're targeting, and it's smarter to target customers who are most receptive to your product or service. So defining your customer is really important because it's going to prioritise your marketing resources. And for you as small business owners, it's often time. So guys, got a really, really cool template here. This one here, who needs or wants your products or services the most? What features are the most appealing? And what do they value most? What do they get? Where do they get their information from? Do they read the newspapers? That's just the beginning. Okay, but those are kind of, if you don't know that, you can never start selling to them. And in our one-on-one sessions, we can go through that template template with you. Some of the big things is, where do I start to find out that information? And again, we'll unearth that in our one-on-one sessions. So, and I get you to create a profile of your ideal customer. The third step, understanding your customers. So Sun Tzu says, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer, which we've all heard. Part of marketing, and I actually, teach marketing, and I often say to my students is that marketing's like going to war and winning. Good marketers are always aware of who they need to beat. Remember, you don't need to be the best in your industry, you just need to be better than the guy in front of you, and then the guy in front of you. So it's really important. If you don't think you've got competitors, okay, wake up. Because a competitor may be your customers just not doing anything with you. We've all got competitors, and we need to understand what their drivers are and what their motivations are, and why people are going to them and not to us. Keeping an eye on your competition is crucial in business. You need to know how you compare in the market and where you can compete and win. Because it's about, you want to win customers, right? I mean, this seminar is called the automatic customer because we want them to return. So, we've got to kind of work out what that is. So again, here's our some competitor research here. We've talked here is that your competitor research should cover your competitor's target market, estimate of their market share, how they will communicate their competitive advantage. I think this is about being really brave and saying what aspects of their offer are better than yours and what aspects of your offer are better than your competitors. Some good thought provokers to be able to think about that. Fourth step, developing your competitive advantage. Now guys, how many of us want to be the guy in red? How many of us want to be the opaque, insignificant ones behind the guy in red? We all want to be the guy in red, right? The guy that's kind of leading it. And fundamentally, I want you to ask, why should a customer buy from you instead of a competitor? If you don't know, chances are your customers won't either. So you've got to always understand how you can actually be our little guy in the red. And Michael will talk a little bit around this as well. So there's lots of ways that you can be to develop your competitive advantage. And don't tell me price, please. Forget that notion. Because for me to compete with you on price, I just have to drop my price and I'm competing with you. There is no way that any business here, unless you've got sufficient scale, can do that. So think about value rather than price. So the guy in red, he's doing everything in here. So we've given you in this template here, some areas where you might want to be competitive. Because sometimes you sit there and you think about, like my investors did, how can we they didn't even know their customers, but if we want to actually compete, on what grounds will we compete? And that's what that template's going to take you through, because we've given you some thought provokers there. Channels. So look, channels are really, we've captured the attention of your target market. If your customers are teenage girls who are heavy social media users, you might decide to place ads on the social channels they use most. So channels really are how you're going to get your message out there. What are you going to use? So my investors obviously used radio, they used newspapers, and they went to expos, none of which worked. I don't think they worked because they weren't talking to the right people with the right message. So it doesn't matter what channel you use, if it's not the right channel, it's not going to work. So if we have a look here, there's one truckload of options and channels, isn't there? And they're just getting more and more. 15 years ago, there was 3 TV stations, 10 radio stations, and 2 newspapers. Well, that's 3 bubbles. Look how many I've got now. Digital, obviously, around websites and Facebooks and all those kind of things. has become a life of its own. And I have to say, guys, if you're not engaging in that whole digital online space, you need to. Because if your customers are there, you need to be there. And it's not an opt-out clause that I don't understand it, so I'm not going to be part of it. You don't get that choice any longer. And just to do a little bit of plug, we're having a next seminar in September just on that, because it's not an option. You know, I don't know how all this works. You have to know how it works, because the likelihood that your customers are there is about 95%. We talk here a little bit about referral channels. So they work really well with B2B businesses. So these channels, which either can be organisations, companies, businesses, industry associations, are connected in truckloads to your ideal customer. Start having a relationship with them and work out who they are, so that you can start to leverage it. We've got here, most businesses use a mix of channels. Remember, the most important factor is what will work best for your target market. So here we go here. I've given you a whole bunch of options there, okay, to work through. And we've also given you some bunch of options to work through there if you're a B2B company. So just giving you these templates are going to start the thinking that is actually going to result in that. So if we go back to, I'll just get rid of that. If we go back to our, last slide, our first slide, which is now our last slide, now I know when I've done the thinking that these are the right things to do because they're connected to my target market with the right message and the right product or service. This is the right timing because I know when they need to buy, and this is the right investment I need to make because I know that to communicate with them, that's what I need to do. So that's the last thing we do, not the only thing we do when we've gone through the whole kind of 3 C's. Okay, just before I introduce Trish, we've got an ebook. So as well as the templates, I really suggest you have a look at this ebook here. We've given you a card there as well. Download it. It's normally worth $59.95, and it's got a truckload of stuff. Go fill your boots. It's got a whole bunch of articles in there, a lot backing up what I've actually said right now. So I think there's about, it's a book, you know, it's got about 8 articles in it, but all backing up what we've actually said. So that's kind of it. Hopefully as a result, we've kind of talked about the 3 C's, the thinking you need to do before you get to the action. And you've got to work that out, work through the template, bring it to the one-on-one sessions. If you're not sure how to find out the information, I can tell you, I know how to find it out. It's not an option. There's more information swirling around in the universe than anything ever before. So it's exciting. You're going to get some marketing plans, huh? That you probably haven't had before.
Good morning, everybody. Very nice of you to get up so early. So, global citizen. I'm born and bred in Birmingham in England. Came via London, I came to Auckland, and I'm also operating in Brisbane, Australia as well. So, my background is in retailing, and the whole focus of retailing is about the psychology of how customers behave. I come from the spatial retail design background, and one of the most things I find fascinating is how do you manage people psychologically to want to buy. And when I came to New Zealand, what I realized is that looking at different retailers, why was one retailer doing better than the other when they were selling the same product? And it came back to the business owners. Business owners have to have a passion. If they're not inspired by what they're doing, then how the hell are they going to inspire their staff or their customers? So this talk today is about the experience that people have with you as a customer, or the experience they have with you from a client perspective. So I talk about the experiences, the marketing. And what I'm talking about here is that Rosina has talked quite eloquently about how to generate awareness in marketing, which is great. You've got to have awareness very clearly. The thing here is, once you've got them, how do you retain them? Which comes back to the automatic customer. We all want customers that just keep coming back over and over again. A lot of businesses, especially SMEs, focus on the acquisition of customers, and they put all their efforts into that area. They put all their effort into their money into that. Yet, getting repeat business is so much easier. So focusing on the retention is far more important financially than acquisition, because it's a lower cost to retain. And if they love what you're doing, they will tell everybody else. And that's what I talk about as the experiences, the marketing. It is word of mouth. If they love it, they'll tell everybody else. So right. So whatever environment we're in, we have an experience. You're having an experience right now. Now, it's either good, bad, or indifferent. I'm hoping it's good for all three of us. And if you're having a good experience, you're going to talk about it and want to know more. If you're having a bad experience, it's like, game over, I'm leaving. Or it's indifferent, it's just washed over you. Those two are not an option in your business. You have to give your clients a great experience. So there's a lot I have to go through today, so I'm going to rush. However, we can go through this in more detail in the 20-minute follow-up. So the experience has to be managed. You have to manage it proactively to control that experience. If you manage it, have no management on it, you have no control. So where's the experience? It could be bad or indifferent. You have no control. You're just being reactive. Bringing emotion into this, and this is what I learnt in retail. If you win the heart, you get the mind for free. Logic goes out of the window. Now, most people think business is all about logical progression, but yes, it is. But it's not that on alone. We're emotional beings at heart. So you have to understand how emotion works from not only from your perspective as a business owner, but from the customer's perspective. Because if you lock into their emotions, that's what gets them to buy. So what are the benefits? McKinsey talks about the customer-led journey. If you manage that process, that journey, and this is what we're going to talk, I'm going to give you a template which shows you how to map that journey. It improves customer satisfaction. It improves business growth. It reduces the cost to serve the clients because the staff are more engaged. So retention, you get low maintenance clients versus high maintenance clients who drain the company. Harvard Business School said that companies that use emotional engagement in the selling of their products and services achieve an 86% faster growth than your competitors. And you've got to know who your competitors are. But 86% faster growth, that will make you the red person. You'll get a 26% higher margin than your competitors and a 21% higher net profit. Look at Apple. Their products aren't the best in the market, but you're so emotionally engaged to them, or a vast majority are, that they charge higher prices, they have stronger customer loyalty, that is the envy of a load of businesses. Engaging emotionally is incredibly important, and taking them through that journey to retain them is incredibly important. So most people look at operations. I've just got to have this operational focus. I've got to process. delivery, task-driven. And it just becomes, and they may be great at it, but it's transactional. There's no emotional engagement. It's robotic. It's going through the process. And this is where I'm talking about, as the owner of the business, as the business leader, you have to have a passion. You have to have a purpose that's beyond financial results. Because conversely, when you do have that purpose beyond financial results, and some of you, all of you may have heard of Simon Sinek's The Why, How, What. People engaged with the purpose of the business far more than the vision of the business. People engage with passion. People love passion. You have to engage at that level. And your philosophy, the way you do it, the values you hold, the beliefs you have, are all what people are looking for. It's what sets you apart from your competitors. Not what you do, it's the way you do it. Because everyone offers the same service in one way or another. But the way you do it and the passion you have behind it and the purpose behind it is what people will engage with. So what is a customer journey? And I'm going to have to charge through this bit, but you'll get it. There's a company and there's a customer. And when they touch, you have a touch point. And they only touch if you have a solution to the problem they're facing. What is their pain point? What is the problem you're solving? You don't just offer a product, you've got to tell them why your solution will solve their problem. It could be a product, it could be the space that you're operating from, it could be the service person. It could be all of that, but what is the problem that you're solving? In the customer journey, they're going to be touching all three spaces, whether it's online. The building is the online version. Do you understand what I mean by that? So there are many moments of contact that you have with your customer. And these moments form a loop if you want an automatic customer, because you want them to go through that whole journey and want to repeat it over and over again. I should do it that way, that's clockwise. And so that's the customer journey. And so there's many touch points with the business, that's in the center. And so how you interact with your customer is incredibly important. There's a constant loop back all the time. There's always interactions. Where those interactions occur is where you have the opportunity to strengthen the relationship all the way through. And you can design each of those touch points. Every single one. Have an awareness of what happens at every single touch point and how can you get them emotionally engaged. And this is where branding comes in, because your passion, your beliefs, your philosophies have to be the same and consistent all the way through. That's what I mean by being in tune. It's very jarring to be promised one thing and experience something else. And if you get it right, they appreciate it. And they want to come back and back and back. And they will tell their friends and their colleagues and anybody else they want. And this is where social media comes in. If they have a bad experience, they'll tell everybody. You know, you don't want them to have a bad or indifferent experience. You want them to have a great experience. This is how you manage it. So, how do we identify emotional engagement? I've already touched on this. It's the inspired leadership. It starts with the owner of the business. I see so many business owners who are so caught up in the doingness of work. They're just fighting fires. They're managing the business. And they've lost their mojo. They've lost the X factor that made them passionate about what they did. So you have to be passionate. You have to be inspired by what you're doing, going beyond just transacting. Because in today's world, in this highly competitive environment, people buy people, businesses buy businesses. People want to do stuff with people they like. I had a client who told me, he said, I'm too old to work with people I don't like. I don't care how good they are. I want to work with people I like. I lost some work to a client when a new person took over that role, and my competitor took over simply because the new person loved playing guitar and racing cars, and so did my competitor. So they had this bond. There was no way I could compete. I don't race cars and I don't play the guitar. Game over. And yet we offer the same service. It's as easy as that. People like to do business with people they like. So if you're passionate about it, you'll make your staff passionate. They'll get engaged. And if they're engaged, they're going to perform better during that customer journey. And if they perform better, the customer's going to become engaged. And if they're engaged, they're going to become loyal, they're going to pay you money. And what happens there? Your income increases. So as business owners, there's a lot of self-interest in leveraging your staff, engaging your customers for that repeat business so that your income grows. Do you want that? Was that not of interest? That's always a dangerous question because someone would go, no, I'm not interested in that. So, emotional engagement has to be embedded at every single touch point. You have a product or service that's going to satisfy a problem and solve a problem that the customer wants. What is their want, need, or goal? You have to understand that. You have to understand the challenges in their lives and what is the problem that you're going to solve for them. So, here we go. Now, I have a very unique business card. It's called A3, so you don't lose it. So could you pass that round? That's probably the main thing. So you can go through this. Can you see it? You will get it when they get the card. So you have to understand primarily at the very beginning, what are their wants, needs, and goals? What is the problem that they have in their lives? And how are you going to solve it? If you don't understand that fundamentally and succinctly, what is the problem that you're solving for them? And they may not even be aware of what the problem is that they're solving, which creates an opportunity when you can identify it and they can't see it. We live in a world of memories which come from experience. The experience we have agitates a certain emotion in us biologically. We tend to think we're very logical and we live in our heads, but we have biological reactions, and Rosina has talked about this. Don't just rely on your gut. Well, actually, the interesting thing is the gut has more nerve cells than the brain does. So do trust your gut in a logical sense. And the point in this is that the memories we take away with us are going to determine whether we want to repeat that experience or not. So, at one level, from a branding perspective, what is the essence that you want people to feel about your business? What is it that you want them, what is the emotion that you want them to have? So, I keep thinking of a company I worked with, City Guard. They, a security company. And the emotion that they wanted was at every single interaction, people felt safe. That was the essence, feeling safe. But there's a buying process. And what we've got here is creating awareness, which is where Rosina comes in. They're going to research and try and see whether they like it or not. You might offer a sweetener. Again, this is where Rosina comes in. There's a decision-making, thinking process. Do I or don't I? Do I or don't I? And Trish will help put the financial model together so that the price is not an issue. But if you're emotionally engaged, price doesn't matter anyway, because I want it. I want that iPhone. I want to use that company because I feel safe with that company. Then there's the purchase. That's one of the most critical parts emotionally. Am I doing the right thing? Am I? Am I feeling guilty? Am I going to have to justify this to my partner? I've just gone and bought this. You know, and interesting enough, in retail I go, it's 99.99% recurring is emotion, and 1% is, or less than 1% a nanosecond later is justification logic. So, and then there's the usage of the product. You know, while you're using the iPhone or while you're using the company you're is it great experience? The whole usage part. And then there's the follow-up. How do you, and this is important in retaining customers. What is the constant follow-up to keep yourself relevant, keep them in the minds of your business, in the minds of them? So you may have a customer, someone who's in financial insurance. There's not a lot of repeat business, but how do you keep them top of mind? There's a marketing process in that, because you want them to keep referring. You want them to go, I need to keep, re-engage. So follow-up is important. What I suggest and what we can do in the 20-minute is take one of those arms and look at that in a lot more depth. Because even in one of those arms, what is it that you want them to feel in every step? Because if I'm just about to purchase something, I want to feel confident. How do you make them feel confident? If there's at another stage, you may want to feel reassured. So there's tributaries of emotions that you need to consider. Now, this all costs money, and you need to manage your budget. So Trish is going to talk about how to manage it financially. But book your time with me, and I can take you into this in a lot more depth.
My name is Trish Love. I have a business called Love to Grow, and we do three main things. We, basically, to take you back just a moment, the reason we actually exist is we try to do our best to help as many people as possible to achieve whatever their version of wealth is that they'd like to achieve. And that word wealth is an acronym that we have created. It stands for work, enjoyment, achievement, love, time, and health. And so we say to people, hey, what version of that do you want in your world, depending on what it is that's important to you across those things? And we make sure that the numbers in your business are doing what they need to do in order to achieve those things so that you achieve that version of wealth for yourself. So if we're saying, how do we do that? There's really only three words that we try to achieve, given that we have a numbers focus. We try to keep people safe, we try to help them grow their business, and we help them learn how to do that. And the other thing that we do is, in terms of the actual practical what type things, we do seminars like this around business growth and also money mindset type things. We, in terms of practical meetings, FaceTime with clients, we have what we call virtual CFO meetings. So that's where we go into a business, spend a couple of hours at a time, help them on their strategy, their 90-day planning, their tactical implementation, but all from a numbers perspective. We're not trying to coach anybody, we're not trying to help them from a marketing or an HR or a sales type perspective. But we do bring some general management perspective into those 90-day planning and strategy sessions, and we often have those sessions in conjunction with someone like Rosina or Michael, or just general marketing type people for whatever it is that the part of the business needs most. So, as I say, the reason that we exist is to help people achieve that version of wealth, which is basically like the equivalent of our why in terms of Love to Grow's business. Yes, we're CFOs, we're not trying to be marketing people at all, but we also know that in order to get the best numbers from your business, in our experience, and obviously consistent with what Michael and Rosina have been talking about today, if you drive your business from the perspective of why does it matter and who cares, in terms of the results that you're achieving for your customers, then that will be what they connect in with. So to do everything that you're doing, if you want to get better financial results, focus on the why most. Then talk about the how, and then talk about what you're actually doing. And loosely speaking, when you're thinking about how can I afford to do these things, either in terms of your time allocation or in terms of your money spend in a budget, I believe that you need to have mentally separate time and money budgets for those 3 different areas. So we need to actually spend some time once a year on our vision and what is it still what we're actually hoping to achieve? Is it still relevant to our customers? And is it still relevant for us? Then that turns us into our strategy and lastly our tactics. So all the things that Rosina was talking about in terms of the action plan and all the planning that goes before that, we just need to have a budget for doing that. That's either literally cash for engaging people to help you have those discussions and thought processes, and also within that time elements of if I'm spending X hours or X days a quarter focusing on how to grow my business, then that means I'm not being operationally client-facing, earning money. So I need to actually have an allowance for that so that I know that I can afford it. And what we're then saying is, let's just check in, what I mentioned before is that version of wealth, let's just check in that all of the budgets that we have in our business for both the reality of how much time we need to spend in it, because all of us can't escape the fact that we only each have 168 hours a week to be able to do stuff. Let's think about how many of those hours we want to be able to spend in each of those main areas of your version of wealth, and let's make sure that when we're preparing a budget, for example, I've got 4 teenagers, there's nearly always at least 6 or 7 teenagers in our house, especially on weekends, and that means that I have things around my version of wealth that, especially when they were little, I couldn't work full time. I could, I didn't want to actually, that's the distinction. And so that had an impact on how much money I could make potentially, how I would structure the type of team members I had in my business, and all those sort of things. Equally, it could be that I want to go overseas for 6 weeks, 3 times a year, and that would have a similar sort of impact. So to understand the constraints that we're having from a numbers perspective, very closely aligns with what we're trying to achieve from a marketing and a branding perspective. I'm biased. Yes, I've got a chartered accountancy background. My team run our chartered accounting firm that we have within Love to Grow, which is the other division that we have besides doing CFO services and also besides doing seminars around business growth and money mindset things. So in the combination of those 3 areas of our business, we've sort of created this little bit of a pyramid which is loosely, very loosely mapped to sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs in a very high level. And yes, I'm biased because we've got work and money at the bottom. Why? Because if you can eat and you've got somewhere to live and you've got places that your children are going to school to or hobbies that you're wanting to be able to pay for, you do need a certain amount of money first. So fundamentally, as aspiring as a lot of our visions and goals are, our business needs to make enough profit first. So therefore it's the base of the pyramid, and basically everything scales up from there. Health is not trying to suggest that health is the least important. It's just that it's both emotional well-being and also physical health, I believe are easier when you've got all the other things sorted. So when we're in a high level, my background for the past 30 odd years is we've been working with clients around what are the key steps of making the numbers better, what are the key steps of your 90-day planning, and what are the key steps and awareness that we need to have around the way that you're thinking around money management, and whether or not you give yourself permission to make more profit, whether or not you're worried around something to do with your money management, and what it is that you might need to consider a little bit differently in order to turn some of the levers in your business so that a better return on your effort is achieved in the end. So at a very high level, this is one of the models that I've created in the various things that we've written, and it's a teaching you how to fish type model. It's basically saying there's 4 key steps about how to grow your business. You want to work out what it is you're trying to achieve in the first place in terms of your goals. We're wanting to then put a reality check in there. So my personal reality check when my children were very young was that I only wanted to work X hours a week. So as aspirational as some of my goals were at the time, there was a reality in there that I could only do so much. And everyone's going to have a similar sort of situation but with different examples. The third thing we need to sort out is what obstacles and options do we have. From a problem-solving, clean slate, what is it that we might come up against when we're taking this particular path of strategy or tactics? And if we predict some of them, then we're going to prevent or reduce some of them. We'll never predict all of them. However, it will hopefully mean that the pathway that we have is a little bit more, is better managed overall. We then, as a result of doing those first 3 steps, can find a natural pathway of what's the step forward, what's the way forward or the pathway to take, which will constantly change because the world's changing so quickly. The thing I'll draw your attention to as well is for each of the steps, look at the words on each adjacent box to remind yourselves consciously what is it that we actually need to focus on. So in the goals step, we need to consider our alternatives and we need to make sure that it's actually in our planning. So we, as obvious as this sounds, if we're trying to achieve something, make sure it's budgeted for, make sure it's in our strategy, and don't think of it as automatic, because that will stretch your time too thin if you've also got other things in your strategy and other things that are budgeted for, but you forget to put the business as usual stuff in. For the reality check, we need to be able to look at our priorities and also make sure that that's allowed for in our planning. For the obstacles and options, we need to consider alternatives for how to resolve them and how to prevent them. And also we need to be very mindful of the sequence of what's most important so that we prevent an obstacle in the first place. So one example of that is, let's get our systems in place before we do a particular activity that might actually work and overload our staff, our systems, etc. Because if it does work, we could be so much under pressure that we actually make less overall benefit to our business than more, because everyone gets annoyed with us for not being able to give them good customer service. So that doesn't mean it's always the case, but it's just something to consider, is what do we need to have in order for our ducks to be in a row from a sequence perspective. And when we're thinking of the way forward, again, we need to think about sequence, and we need to check back in, actually what are our most important priorities? Because, for example, we might have a situation where we've got 5 things that we really want to achieve, and if we ranked them in terms of time, money, outcomes that we're wanting to achieve, we might realise that we can only actually afford, in terms of either time or money or both, the top 3, and let's just check that the top 3 are actually the most important before we decide to move forward. Here's another bit of a model that I've created that talks about either for your entire strategy or for even just one business decision, what is it that we need to consider to have a balanced growth across your whole business. So again, I'm a little bit biased. We want to make sure that something is financially okay at the bottom. We need to make sure our systems and processes are sorted out. We need to decide what we're going to change, what we're going to train in terms of the people that are involved, and what's most important from a customer perspective. From a strategic perspective, you start at the top, start with what do the customers want, and you know, as Rosina says, do we even know? If we don't, let's find out. From a financial perspective, and a practical bottom-up perspective, we start at the bottom, and we need to be careful of our own individual money style as well. Which leads me on to this slide, which is, again, spent 30 odd years working out what is it that actually holds us back financially. Why? Because when I was first working, I was actually a chartered accountant in an accounting firm, and I started to notice that we would have clients that come in, let's say in the morning, and everything they touched turned to gold. Sort of had that Midas touch, everything was easy in their business, and they were very successful. From the outside looking in, appeared to be very content. And then you'd have clients in the afternoon, as an example, where they everything seemed to be hard. And the thing that fascinated me is I couldn't work out why. Why were they different? And the reason I couldn't work it out is because both, typically, business owners are very ambitious. They're really well based in very good values. They're conscientious. They're wanting to do their best. They were all good at what they did. So they might be a great architect or a great GP or whatever it is that they might be doing. They might be a great plumber, or they might be a great manufacturer of their services. But for some reason, some of them were struggling. So I spent years actually observing. It really interested me. what is it that seems to make some people make the Midas touch effect happen, and what is it that that holds people that are in survival mode back from being able to have an easy pathway in their business. The reason I wanted to find out is because I personally was from quite a humble background. I didn't know myself, so I wanted to see what other people were doing. So thousands of clients later, we worked out some of the stuff, and in a book I've written, we've sort of explained that quite a bit, which is called Love to Grow, by the way, same as our company name. So we've worked out that basically it's a combination of your beliefs and your actions as to what makes a difference. If you have low beliefs, it tends to be that you're a little bit anxious about things, and if you've got very good actions financially, then you will end up being in a stable money style, and it's the second best one to be, so it's not the end of the world if someone is living within their means and making a bit of money, but it's not quite as good as if the quadrant up, which is the green one called the sorted box, which is the best place to be. The other two money styles basically are reflective of the fact that someone's actual actions around money aren't as good as they might be. So they spend more than they make, they might not save regularly, they might not know what their situation is, and depending on whether or not they're operating from a place of high beliefs, which is a high level of trust, or low beliefs, which is they've sort of got their eyes shut and got their head buried in the sand, depends on whether they're in a survival mode or sold out mode. And these money styles turn into different animal characters. The elephant is a stable, strong, dependable. If you're married to one, they'll remember everything that you promised to do 35 years ago. And they will be very, very cautious and often also scared by something as little as a mouse, in cartoons at least. And a lemming is the complete opposite. They're the ones that think everything's going to be great. They're the survival type people. For no apparent, they hang out with other lemmings, by the way. They all think they're normal. Everyone else can see that they're a little bit kind of quirky and a little bit edgy and often very creative. Can I just say that none of these money style concepts have got anything at all to do with your IQ. And I mean that genuinely. If you're making or the amount of money you make, if you make $1 million and you spend 1.1 million, then you've still got the same issue as someone who's got a lot less zeros in their number. And in 30 years of working with people, I can attest to the fact that we're one of the few occupations that actually get to see the ones that look good, smell good, but they're broke. And of all the people that you think are successful, half of them will be broke. Just about guarantee it. It's just really hard to tell which ones, so therefore don't worry about them, focus on you. And just get your version of wealth that you want to have. So the lemmings they're great for weeks, months, years, and all of a sudden they throw themselves off a cliff, and no one really knows why. The thing about lemmings, they'll do that they'll buy an investment property that they don't really afford, they'll book an overseas holiday when they don't really need it, or they'll go shopping because they want to feel better, or whatever. You know, there'll be something in their management of their money that feels a little bit reckless or random at times from the outside looking in. They think it's absolutely fine. Everything's going to be fabulous, always, because they've got really good self-esteem often, and they just think everything's going to be awesome. The problem is that sometimes they're wrong. So what they do is they end up spending next month's money this month because it's going to be okay. And sometimes that doesn't happen. So they're the lemmings. The sold out people, the dodos and the ostriches, they're basically people that suck at both actions and beliefs, and they mean that as caringly as possible. And by the way, I've lived in all four of these quadrants over the last 30 years, so I don't have any judgment around them, and some of them are a lot more fun than others, I must say. The places to choose where you want to be. And the ostriches sort of bury their head in the sand. The dodos are wandering around destined for financial extinction, and neither of them realise it. From a business context, as an individual, your beliefs and your actions around money will reflect in the profit and loss and the balance sheet that your accountant shares with you at the end of the year. Guarantee it, because your decisions, your attitudes, and your pathway that you choose in every step of your business will be a reflection somehow of what type of things are actually driving you at both an emotional level, as Michael talks about, all around those money topics. So the dolphins are the cool ones. They're the ones that just have a lot of fun. They're also very clever, they are very actually strong, and they will protect what is theirs when they need to. They're very community focused, and they're quite playful. So they've got their beliefs and their actions around money sorted. They're the ones that I was studying for the last 30 years when I was in that office when I was first starting out as an accountant, saying, hey, what is it that they've got that I haven't learnt yet? And so in our 20-minute catch-ups, we can talk about a whole heap of stuff. Some of the really practical things that I want to make sure that we talk about, though, is I've kind of already talked about these things. So we've talked about budgeting, everything to do with your marketing and your branding into your budget. Do not underestimate the importance of it, is what I would suggest. It is critical for people to be working on their business, not just in it, because if you're not and your competitors are, then even if you stand still, they will be getting better by comparison. So the relativity will kick in and you'll be falling behind as a result. We need to take a can't afford to get it wrong approach. So have measurable results with everything that you do with anyone who's a marketing person. Not everything can be measurable and things will take time is one thing I would add to that, but at least ask, what are we trying to achieve, what outcomes, what return on investment are we looking for? Actively consider alternatives. That's part of that growth model that we were talking about around, not just alternatives in advisors, but alternatives in approach. What is it that's ideal for your target market rather than a broad brush approach? Because your alternatives might be time-based versus money-based, because you might be a business-to-consumer type business and need a relatively more social media input rather than going out and spending money on something else that requires more cash. Make sure you plan your time in your calendars for working on the business aspects. Another thing from a CFO that I would suggest, because if you put your planning into your calendar, then you will visually see, how can I do this operational work at the same time as I'm working on my business? And you can then work out, well, does that mean I need to have extra resource in terms of my team, in terms of outside people that are helping me do those bits? Because that then also helps you work out how to delegate what it is that you can delegate and how much that will cost, and that then flows back to your budget. So it's very, very interrelated. Obviously we need to prioritise, we need to sequence, and decide what activities are not negotiable. Priorities. So that no matter what happens in this next 90-day plan, we will be getting these things done. I don't know if Michael and Rosina would agree with me on this, but I certainly know that for me, we often miss our 90-day plan deliverables. They often shift from an August to a September. They might even shift to a November. But the fact they're in there, they get done quicker than if they weren't, and the ones that are important happen. So the other thing in terms of the spending and the benchmarks, it's really hard to actually tell people what they should be spending on marketing. And I always go back to, from a CFO's perspective, well, what is it you want to achieve? How big do you want to be? Because that will be relative to how much you want to spend. But if I was to give you a very, very general, specific response, if you're a B2B customer, then I'd be, company, so business to business, your customers are other businesses, then I would be wanting you to find a way that you could spend around 10% of your revenue, which sounds a lot. I'm not saying that you would spend it. I'm going, let's have a budget that says that you could if you really wanted to, and you want to grow quite significantly. So now, that sounds like a lot, right? If you've got $1 million turnover, it's 100 grand. You go, I'm not going to spend that much. Okay, well, do we want to spend 30? But either way, we need to know what we're wanting to achieve within those amounts of spend, and we want to know what outcomes we're wanting to result in. So we don't want to be stingy or unrealistic, but we also don't want to be frivolous. So pretend you're an accountant when you're making these decisions, and be careful, but also be careful about your competitive positioning, and as we said before, talking about the systems that you can cope with. The things around the 20-minute follow-ups that we had that Rosina's been handing around, etc. What I would strongly recommend from a commercially focused, strategic CFO's perspective, so forgetting I'm an accountant, is that you genuinely book a session with all three of us. If it was me, I would go 1, 2, 3. I'd do them in the order that we presented, if you can. if you can't, it won't matter. 3 of us are used to working together a lot. We do a business leadership program where all 3 of us are in that. And I'd love you to come to an information evening we're having on that actually, but I have to tell you guys about that. The benefit that you get from all 3 is really, really important. So if you can't find those times, then we can find perhaps a Skype time that we could talk instead, or in my case, I'm in Auckland fortnightly, so it's not that hard.